My mom once looked me dead in the eye and said, "Life would be easier without you here." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just stepped back and let her prove it. By Monday, the fridge was empty. By Wednesday, the bills were stacked on the counter. And by Thursday night, my little sister was sobbing while Child Protective Services knocked on the door. I thought I was the broken one. Turns out, I was the glue holding everything together. I grew up in a house where silence was louder than shouting. My mom wasn't the type to throw things or scream until her throat gave out. No, she cut with sarcasm, with eye rolls, with that tired sigh that made you feel like existing was a burden she was too exhausted to carry. I learned early that if I wanted her approval, I had to earn it. And if I wanted peace, I had to disappear. My dad left when I was 9. He didn't leave a note, just a voicemail that said, "I can't do this anymore." After that, my mom turned survival into a personality trait. She worked double shifts, came home drained, and still managed to remind me how much I slowed her down. "If it weren't for you, maybe I'd have a chance," she'd mutter while sorting bills at the kitchen table. I was the oldest kid in the house, which meant responsibility got glued to me whether I wanted it or not. My little sister, Emily, was 8 years younger and barely understood half of what was happening. To her, I was the big brother who walked her to school, cooked pasta on nights Mom worked late, and made up bedtime stories so she wouldn't notice the sound of Mom crying in her bedroom. On the outside, we looked like any other struggling family. Our house wasn't falling apart, but every corner had a crack you couldn't unsee once you noticed. The leaky faucet in the bathroom, the dent in the hallway wall from when Mom shoved a chair too hard, the pile of unopened envelopes on the counter, always growing. For years, I told myself it was normal. Every family has problems, right? But deep down, I felt the imbalance. I was carrying weight no teenager or young adult should carry. Grocery lists, overdue bills, parent-teacher conferences for Emily, it all landed on me. And every time I tried to push back, my mom found a way to twist it. "Don't act like you're some hero. You're just doing what you're supposed to do." The truth is, I wanted out. College was supposed to be my escape. I worked part-time, saved every dollar, and dreamed of the day I could breathe without feeling like my mom's shadow was looming over me. But when the acceptance letter finally came, she guilt-tripped me into staying. "So you're just gonna abandon us? After everything I've done for you?" And like an idiot, I stayed. That brings me to the night everything cracked. It wasn't an explosion, not at first. It was one sentence. We were in the kitchen, and she was sorting bills again, muttering under her breath. I asked if she needed help. She looked up at me with those tired eyes, the ones that had seen too much, and blamed me for half of it. And she said, "You know what? Life would be easier without you here." I don't know what she expected, maybe tears, maybe begging. But instead, I felt this cold clarity wash over me. If she really believed that, then fine. I'd step aside. I'd let her see just how easy it would be. At that moment, I had no idea what was about to unravel. The first 24 hours felt almost too quiet. Normally, I'd be the one checking Emily's homework, running the dishwasher, making sure the lights were off before bed. That night, I did nothing. I went straight to my room, shut the door, and waited. By morning, the cracks were already showing. Mom overslept, something that never happened when I was the one nudging her awake. Emily missed the bus. I heard Mom yelling from the kitchen, blaming her for being slow, even though she was the one still in her bathrobe when the clock hit 8. I almost stepped in, almost grabbed my keys to drive Emily myself. But then I remembered her words. "Life would be easier without you here." So I stayed put. The fridge was another problem. Usually, I kept track of what we needed. Milk, bread, pasta, simple stuff. That Monday night, I heard cabinet doors slam and Mom cursing under her breath. Dinner ended up being half a bag of chips and some old takeout containers. Emily gave me a look across the table like she was silently asking, "What's happening?" I just shrugged. By Tuesday, the bills started piling. I'd always been the one to open the mail, sort through overdue notices, and remind Mom which ones couldn't wait. That day, the envelopes stacked untouched on the counter. The electric company called, their automated voice filling the kitchen. Mom let it go to voicemail. I sat on the couch, pretending to scroll my phone, heart pounding because I knew exactly how fast those late fees add up. The tension in the house was different now. Normally, my presence kept things balanced. Mom would bark, I'd absorb, Emily would hide. But with me sitting back, refusing to step into my usual role, It was like the entire system collapsed in on itself. Wednesday morning was the breaking point. Emily woke up crying because she couldn't find clean clothes for school. I'd been the one doing laundry. Mom snapped, yanking a crumpled shirt from the hamper and telling her to just wear it again. Emily looked at me with these glassy, betrayed eyes, like I'd abandoned her too. That stung more than anything Mom had said. Still, I stayed silent. That evening, I overheard Mom on the phone with her sister. Her voice was sharp, defensive. He thinks he's punishing me. Fine, let him. He'll see how long he lasts without me needing him. I wanted to laugh. Without me? She hadn't noticed yet, but she was the one unraveling. The real cliffhanger came that night. Around 9, the doorbell rang. We never got visitors that late. I froze when I heard the voice on the porch. Official, clipped, carrying the weight of authority. Child Protective Services. We received a call about this household. Mom's gasp echoed through the hall. Emily clutched her stuffed rabbit and stared at me like I had the answers. But I had none. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just my silent protest anymore. It was about to become something bigger, something that could tear our family apart for good. The knock from CPS didn't end with a polite conversation on the porch. They stepped inside. 2 women, one older, one younger, flashed badges and started asking questions in that calm, professional tone that makes you feel both judged and dissected at the same time. Mom plastered on her best everything's fine smile. I'd seen it before, at parent-teacher nights, at family gatherings when people asked how we were doing. She acted like nothing could touch her, like the bills on the counter didn't exist, like the smell of burnt food from last night wasn't still hanging in the air. But CPS workers aren't fools. They scanned the room, their eyes lingering on the pile of unopened envelopes, the empty fridge humming in the corner, Emily clutching her stuffed rabbit like it was the last safe thing she had. Who usually takes care of meals? The older one asked. Mom jumped in too fast. I do. Of course I do. Her voice had that brittle edge, the kind that cracks if you press too hard. My stomach clenched. I wondered if they'd noticed the takeout bags in the trash, the empty cereal box shoved under the counter. They asked Emily some questions too. Soft, careful ones. Did she feel safe? Did she have what she needed? Emily looked between Mom and me, her small hands twisting the rabbit's ears. She said yes, but her voice shook. That tremor said more than the words. When they left, promising to follow up, the silence that followed was suffocating. Mom slammed the door shut and rounded on me. This is your fault. You think sitting on your hands proves something? All you've done is drag strangers into our lives. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For a moment, guilt flared, like maybe she was right. Maybe I was making things worse. But then my eyes drifted to the counter. The bills. The shut-off notice from the electric company in bold red letters. The final reminder from the water utility. None of that was because of me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my head. Emily's eyes darting, her voice shaking. She was caught in the crossfire, collateral damage in a war between me and Mom. And she hadn't asked for any of it. By Thursday morning, I saw the second crack. I was leaving my room when I caught Mom at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she tried to fill out some kind of paperwork. It looked like a government form. She stuffed it into her purse when she noticed me. That was the first time I realized CPS wasn't just a scare. They were serious. There were forms, follow-ups, maybe even court dates. I wanted to ask her what she was hiding, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I went back to my room and checked my phone. My notifications were blowing up from people I barely talked to anymore. Friends, classmates. Apparently, word had already spread. Someone must have seen the CPS car outside and snapped a picture. My family's dirty laundry was now public gossip. My chest tightened as I read the messages. Everything okay at home? Dude, did CPS really show up? That's when it hit me. This wasn't staying inside our 4 walls. The walls had cracked, and the whole world could see through them. And if things were already this bad, I couldn't even imagine what was coming next. Thursday night was the first time I felt my stomach physically turn at the sight of my own kitchen. The CPS visit had left an invisible residue in the air, like every chair, every counter, every crumb carried judgment. I thought Mom would snap out of it, at least pretend to hold things together. But instead, I came home from my shift at the gas station to chaos. The sink was overflowing with dishes, food crusted on plates. The trash was stacked so high it tilted, threatening to spill. The air smelled sour, like something had gone bad in the fridge days ago. Emily was sitting on the couch in pajamas that were clearly 2 days old, hair tangled, staring blankly at a cartoon that had been looping for hours. And Mom, she wasn't even there. I felt this cold shock run through me. She had left Emily alone in that mess. I dropped my bag, my heart pounding. I wanted to scream, to grab my phone and call her, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. Emily looked at me with this hollow expression and said, "She went out hours ago. She said she'd be right back." Right back. It was almost midnight. I went to the fridge to grab something for Emily, and that's when I saw it. Nothing. Literally nothing except half a bottle of ketchup and a carton of milk that had expired last week. My stomach churned. CPS hadn't exaggerated. The neglect wasn't some misunderstanding. It was real, right in front of me. I made Emily a peanut butter sandwich from the last scraps of bread. She picked at it without appetite. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. "Why doesn't she want us anymore?" My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I wanted to lie, to say something comforting, but the words stuck in my throat. Because deep down, I wondered the same damn thing. When Mom finally stumbled in around 1 in the morning, she reeked of smoke and cheap wine. She saw me standing there, saw Emily asleep on the couch, and her face twisted, not with guilt, but with anger. "You think you're better than me? Playing house while I'm gone." Her words were slurred, but the venom was clear. I snapped then. Weeks of swallowing it all, years of carrying her load, came boiling out. "I didn't have to play house, Mom. I've been running this place since Dad left. You wouldn't last a day if I stopped." For a second, she just stared at me. Then she laughed. This bitter, joyless laugh that cut deeper than any scream could have. "Exactly. That's why I said life would be easier without you. Because with you here, I get to see just how much I've failed." Her voice broke on the word failed. For a flicker of a moment, she looked almost human, almost fragile. But then the mask slid back on, and she shoved past me toward her room. I stood there, shaking, staring at the closed door. The sound of Emily's shallow breathing on the couch was the only thing anchoring me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark with the unopened bills spread out in front of me. The electric shutoff was scheduled for next week. The water bill was already overdue. There was a court date notice tucked in one envelope, something about unpaid rent. My hands went clammy. CPS wouldn't have to dig very hard. One look at this paperwork, and they'd have all the proof they needed. And the worst part? I realized I'd been holding this dam together for years. Every reminder call I made, every dinner I cooked, every form I filled out. That was me plugging leaks in a sinking ship. The moment I stepped back, the whole thing collapsed. It wasn't an exaggeration. Without me, this house wasn't just messy or stressful. It was unsafe. Neglect was no longer a word whispered behind our backs. It was visible, undeniable, written in red ink across overdue bills and in the hollow eyes of my sister. And for the first time, I asked myself a terrifying question. What if CPS wasn't just here to scare Mom? What if they were here to take Emily away? I wasn't ready for that answer. The morning after that fight, I woke up to the sound of Emily coughing. Not the usual morning cough. This one was deep, ragged, the kind that makes your chest ache just hearing it. I rushed into her room and found her curled up under a thin blanket, cheeks flushed. She was burning up with fever. Normally, I'd grab Tylenol, check her temperature, make her soup. But the medicine cabinet was empty. The last bottle had been finished weeks ago, and I hadn't bought more because, well, I wasn't supposed to be the one keeping track anymore. I panicked. I knocked on Mom's door, but she didn't answer. When I finally pushed it open, the smell hit me first. Stale alcohol, unwashed laundry, something sour that clung to the air. She was sprawled on the bed, still in yesterday's clothes, dead asleep. I shook her shoulder. "Mom, Emily's sick. She needs something." She groaned, turned over, and muttered, "Then call the doctor. You're so responsible, figure it out." Her words sliced through me. She didn't even open her eyes. So I did what I always did. I figured it out. I dug through my desk for leftover change, scraped together enough for cold medicine from the corner store, and made Emily tea with honey. I sat with her, cooling her forehead with a damp cloth, watching cartoons together while Mom slept until noon. That's when I noticed her school folder on the coffee table. It had been dropped there days ago, unopened. I pulled it closer, flipping through notes from her teacher. My chest tightened as I read. "Emily has been falling asleep in class. She often comes without homework. She seems distracted and withdrawn. Please reach out if you need support. The note was dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. And Mom hadn't even looked at it. That's when the bigger picture came crashing down on me. It wasn't just bills. It wasn't just dirty dishes or overdue laundry. Emily was slipping, academically, emotionally, physically. And CPS hadn't come because of some nosy neighbor exaggerating. They'd come because someone at school had noticed. Someone had sounded the alarm. I sat there, the folder open in my lap, Emily dozing beside me on the couch, and I realized this was no longer about me proving a point. This wasn't about Mom learning a lesson. This was about survival. For Emily, maybe even for me. When Mom finally dragged herself out of bed, she acted like nothing had happened. She heated up coffee, ignored the mess, scrolled her phone like the world wasn't collapsing around us. I tried to show her the folder. Mom, her teacher's been trying to reach out. She's not okay. We can't just. She cut me off with a sharp laugh. Oh, please. Teachers love to overreact. You think I'm going to let some underpaid babysitter tell me how to raise my kid? Her dismissal was like ice water down my back. Because in that moment, I understood. She wasn't going to change. Not for me. Not for Emily. Not even for herself. The scale of it hit me harder than anything CPS could say. This wasn't a rough patch. This was a free fall, and we were already halfway down. And for the first time, a thought I'd buried deep started to claw its way up. Maybe I wasn't just testing her. Maybe I needed to get Emily out before the system did it for me. That night, I sat on the back steps of the house, staring at the patchy lawn like it held answers. The air was heavy, the kind that clings to your skin, but my thoughts were louder than the crickets. For the first time in years, I didn't know what role to play. On one hand, stepping back had proven everything I wanted. Mom's words, "Life would be easier without you," were a lie. The house had collapsed in less than a week. Emily was sick. The bills were past due. CPS was circling like vultures. If this was easier, then the word had lost all meaning. But on the other hand, Emily, every time I thought about her wide, feverish eyes or the way she whispered, "Why doesn't she want us anymore?" guilt clawed at me. She hadn't asked for this test. She didn't deserve to be the collateral damage of my silent protest. My mind spun in circles. Do I keep letting it play out? Let Mom crash and burn until CPS takes notice, until the system forces her to wake up? Or do I step back in, clean up the mess, refill the fridge, balance the bills, slide right back into the role of parent, savior, fixer? Neither option felt right. One felt cruel. The other felt like surrender. I thought about leaving, packing my bag, walking out the door, starting fresh somewhere else. Maybe that would be the ultimate proof, showing her what, without me, really meant. But then I imagined Emily's face when she realized I was gone, and the thought gutted me. For hours, I sat there, chewing on every angle, every outcome. Sleep never came, just a gnawing knot in my chest, a war between anger and responsibility. By the time the sun came up, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever I chose, it wasn't about proving a point anymore. It was about survival, for me, for Emily. And if I didn't act soon, someone else would act for me. And I wasn't sure I could live with the way they'd decide. By Friday morning, I couldn't sit still anymore. Watching the house rot around me was one thing, but watching Emily slip deeper into the crossfire, it was unbearable. I didn't have a grand plan. I didn't even have money. But I knew doing nothing wasn't an option. The first step was simple: groceries. I raided the last of my savings and walked to the store. It wasn't much: bread, milk, cereal, some fruit. But when I came back and Emily's eyes lit up at the sight of apples, I realized how low the bar had fallen. She hugged me like I'd brought her a Christmas gift. I cleaned too. Not because I wanted to cover for Mom, but because I couldn't stand seeing Emily surrounded by garbage. I scrubbed dishes until my hands ached, took out overflowing trash, opened windows to chase the stench out. By the time I was done, the house almost looked livable again. For a moment, I felt lighter, like maybe I could patch things up long enough to keep CPS away. That illusion shattered when Mom came home. She walked in with shopping bags. Not groceries, not medicine. Clothes. Cheap, glittery clothes with price tags dangling. She dropped them on the couch and smiled like she'd just solved the world's problems. "See? I told you I've got it handled," she said, as if new outfits somehow erased overdue bills and a sick child. Something inside me snapped. I held up one of the shut-off notices, my voice shaking but louder than it had ever been with her. Handled? They're about to cut the power. Emily's sick. CPS is breathing down our necks. And you're out buying junk? Do you even hear yourself? Her smile vanished, replaced with that icy glare I knew too well. Don't talk to me like I'm the child here. You think you know better? Fine. Why don't you just take over completely, since you're so perfect? For a split second, I almost shouted yes. But the weight of that sentence crushed me. Taking over completely wasn't just chores. It was bills, legal papers, custody fights. I wasn't sure I could carry that load. Still, I didn't back down. I don't need to be perfect. I just need you to be a mom. For once. Her face hardened, and she stormed into her room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I stood there, chest heaving, Emily peeking from the hallway with wide eyes. I wanted to tell her it was going to be okay, that I had things under control. But the truth was, I didn't. I'd taken the first step, food, cleaning, standing up to Mom. But it felt like trying to plug holes in a sinking ship with my bare hands. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The calm I felt was only temporary. Something bigger was brewing, and it was about to hit harder than I ever imagined. For the next couple of days, things almost looked normal. Groceries were stocked, the kitchen was clean, and Emily's fever finally broke. I kept up the routine, cooking, laundry, helping her with homework, while Mom stayed strangely quiet. She didn't thank me, but she didn't fight me either. She floated through the house like a ghost, scrolling her phone, chain-smoking on the porch. On Sunday, she even made breakfast. Pancakes, the kind she used to make when I was a kid. Emily clapped her hands like it was a miracle. For a moment, we sat at the table together, plates stacked, syrup dripping, and I almost believed it. Almost believed maybe this had been the wake-up call she needed. Mom even smiled. A small, tired smile that I hadn't seen in years. See? I can handle it, she said, almost like she was trying to convince herself. I wanted so badly to believe her. I wanted to hold on to that fragile picture of family, of us laughing over pancakes, of Emily's face glowing with happiness. For a brief moment, I let myself breathe. That night, I tucked Emily into bed. She whispered, "Maybe things will be okay now." I squeezed her hand and nodded, even though a knot twisted in my stomach. Because as much as I wanted it to last, I knew my mom too well. She could fake it for a day, maybe two. But deep down, she wasn't changing. The pile of unopened bills was still there. The voicemail light on the landline was still blinking. And her eyes, behind the smile, were still hollow. Still, I let myself enjoy the silence. I sat on the couch, the faint smell of pancakes still in the air, and pretended for one night that we were just a normal family. But calm never lasts in a house like ours. And I didn't know it yet, but the storm that was coming would make everything before look like a warm-up. The calm didn't even last a week. By Wednesday, the storm hit. I came home from school to find 2 envelopes taped to our front door. One was from the electric company, bold red letters screaming final notice. The other was worse, an eviction warning. Rent hadn't been paid in 3 months. 3. And judging from the date on the notice, we had less than 2 weeks before they locked us out. My hands shook as I peeled them off the door. I knew Mom had been ignoring bills, but this was something else. This wasn't just bad budgeting. This was the edge of the cliff. Inside, I found her at the kitchen table, wine glass in hand, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. I slapped the notices down in front of her. "Do you even care? They're about to throw us out." She didn't flinch. She just sipped her wine and muttered, "They always threaten. Nothing ever happens." That was the moment I realized she wasn't just careless. She was in denial, living in a fantasy where consequences never arrived. Emily came in, clutching her backpack. She froze when she saw the papers, her little voice trembling. "Are we moving?" I swallowed hard. I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to shield her. But Mom cut in with a laugh that made my blood run cold. Maybe the state will put you in some nice foster home if your brother keeps playing hero." Emily's face crumpled. She ran to her room, sobbing. Something inside me broke. I followed Mom into the living room, my voice raw. "Do you even hear yourself? You're joking about losing your own daughter." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't start with me. You're the one who brought CPS into this. You think they came here on their own? No. You set this up, didn't you? You want to make me look like a monster." I was stunned. For a second, I thought she was kidding. But no, the paranoia in her voice was real. She actually believed it. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the voicemail from CPS, played it out loud. Their calm, clipped message about follow-up regarding Emily. Proof it wasn't me. Proof they'd come because of her negligence. But she didn't listen. She just screamed louder. You're turning my own daughter against me. You've been doing it for years. Her words echoed through the house, bouncing off walls that had heard too many fights. That night, I found Emily asleep on the floor of my room, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She whispered through half-dreams, "Don't let them take me." And that was the moment I knew this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was survival. The next day, CPS came back. This time, they weren't alone. They brought a police officer. The knock at the door was sharp, commanding. Mom panicked, whispering to me, "Don't say a word. Don't you dare make me look bad." But I didn't have to say anything. The officer's eyes swept over the piles of unopened mail, the empty fridge, the smell of stale alcohol. The CPS worker asked to see Emily's room, asked about school attendance, asked about food. Mom tried to spin it, but every excuse fell flat. And when Emily stepped forward, clutching my hand, her small voice cracking as she said, "Please don't take me away," I saw something shift in their faces. They weren't just here to scare anymore. They were building a case. When they left, Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. But it wasn't the sob of a mother scared to lose her child. It was the sob of someone realizing her facade was crumbling. And me? I stood frozen, the eviction notice still on the counter, the fridge still empty, my sister still shaking. That's when it hit me. CPS wasn't the threat. Mom was. And if I didn't make a move soon, they wouldn't just take Emily. They might take me down with her. I didn't think it could get worse after the second CPS visit. But it did. Friday afternoon, I came home from school to find the power shut off. No lights, no hum of the fridge, no heat. The house felt like a tomb. Emily was sitting on the couch in her jacket, wrapped in a blanket, shivering. She didn't even cry this time, just stared at me with wide, empty eyes that said she was running out of hope. I lit a candle and tried to smile. It's just a blackout. Happens all the time. But she wasn't buying it. She was old enough now to know when I was lying. When I walked into the kitchen, the weight of it all crushed me. Eviction notice. Empty cupboards. Shut-off bills. CPS breathing down our necks. And my mom, sitting at the table with another glass of wine, muttering to herself, detached from reality. For the first time, I felt defeated. Like maybe she was right all along. Maybe I was powerless. Maybe I couldn't hold this together, no matter how hard I tried. That night, Emily climbed into bed beside me. She whispered, "They're going to take me, aren't they?" I froze. My throat closed up. I wanted to tell her no, to promise her safety. But the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I didn't know. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to her shallow breathing. Every sound in the house felt like a countdown. Every shadow felt like someone coming to take her away. Around midnight, I broke. I slipped outside, sat on the cold steps, and let it all pour out. The anger, the fear, the exhaustion. I buried my face in my hands and cried harder than I had since I was a kid. Silent, ugly sobs that left me gasping for air. For years, I'd been the glue holding everything together, but in that moment, I felt like dust. Like the weight had finally crushed me. And the worst part? I started to believe the lie my mom had planted. Maybe life really would be easier without me. Maybe I was just prolonging the inevitable. When I finally dragged myself back inside, the house was dark, silent. Emily's small form curled on the mattress, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her, and something inside me shifted. If CPS came tomorrow, they'd see a house without power, without food, without safety. They wouldn't see me cleaning, cooking, trying. They'd just see failure. That realization hollowed me out. I felt like I'd already lost. And in that darkness, with nothing left to cling to, one thought cut through the fog. If I wanted to save Emily, and maybe even myself, I couldn't keep waiting for Mom to change. I had to do something drastic. Something final. Saturday morning, the house felt like the aftermath of a storm, silent, but charged with tension. I woke up before sunrise, my mind already made up. No more waiting for Mom to change. No more patching holes. This time, I was going to take control. I started by collecting every piece of evidence. The overdue bills, the eviction notice, Emily's school folder, the unopened letters from CPS. I laid them out on the kitchen table like a crime scene. Each paper was a nail in the coffin of denial. When Mom finally shuffled into the kitchen, hair a mess, eyes red from another night of drinking, she froze at the sight. "What's this?" she muttered. "This," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "is what you've been ignoring. This is our reality, and I'm done pretending it's fine." She tried to wave me off. "Don't start with your drama." But I didn't stop. "Emily's sick. We have no power. We're about to be evicted. CPS is coming back. And you're still acting like this is some kind of game." "It's not a game, Mom. It's our lives." Her face hardened, but there was a flicker in her eyes. Fear, maybe. She reached for the papers, but I pulled them back. "No," I said. "You don't get to hide them anymore. You're going to listen." For a moment, silence. Then she snapped. "Oh, so now you're in charge? You think you're better than me? You think you can just take my kid in my house and run my life?" Her voice cracked on the last word, and that's when I realized she was scared, not of me, but of losing control. "I don't want to take anything," I said quietly. "I just want Emily safe. And right now, she's not. None of us are." She scoffed, but her hands were trembling. "What are you going to do? Call CPS on me yourself?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "If it comes to that, yes." The room went still. Even the fridge's quiet hum was gone because the power was still out. Emily padded into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, clutching her rabbit. She looked at me, then at Mom, sensing the shift. Mom opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "You don't get to decide this anymore. You had chance after chance. I covered for you. I raised Emily while you drank. I paid bills with money I didn't have. I gave up my life for this house. And you told me it would be easier without me." My voice cracked, but I kept going. "Fine. Here's your easier life. The bills. The eviction. CPS. All yours. I'm done." Her eyes widened. "Where are you going?" "I'm taking Emily to Aunt Lisa's. She already said we could stay. I've got a bag packed." Mom lunged for the papers, but I stepped back, shielding Emily. "No," I said again, firmer. "You need help, Mom. Real help. And I'm done being the glue while you fall apart." For a long moment, she just stared at me. Her face crumpled, not with anger, but with something closer to despair. "Don't do this," she whispered. "Don't take her away from me." I swallowed hard. "Then show us you can be a mother. Get help. Call CPS before they call you. Go to rehab. Do something. But until then, Emily's coming with me." She didn't answer. She just sat down, burying her face in her hands. For the first time, she looked small. I turned to Emily. "Go get your bag, sweetie." She nodded, eyes wide, and ran to her room. As I walked to the door with our things, Mom finally spoke. Her voice was barely audible. "I didn't mean it when I said it'd be easier without you." I paused. "I know," I said softly. "But words have consequences. So do actions." And with that, I opened the door and stepped out into the sunlight, Emily's small hand gripping mine. For the first time in years, I felt air in my lungs that didn't taste like guilt. Behind us, the house stood silent. Ahead of us, uncertainty, but also, maybe, freedom.